What is good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode brought to you by the League FFB. Today, we are about to do an underdog fantasy draft. You guys know the deal. We got some people from the Discord, both the League FFB Discord and the bdge Discord. So hopefully you guys are excited to hit this draft. I think we are full now in our draft. So let's just hop right in and we'll see where we're at. You guys see we got the draft pulled up on the screen. So if you guys are in here in the draft with me, go ahead and let me know in the chat. Would love to talk with some of you people here tonight as we draft some fantasy football teams. So as you can see, we're on the board we're on the board here at the 107. So kind of a decent pick. We did one on the bdge channel today where we were drafting from, we did a big dog draft, and I had the 108 in that draft. I got some Breece Hall. We'll see what happens today on this one right here. So my plan is probably to not do what I did in the one today because I did not like the team that I came out with today. There was a lot of rookies, probably more rookies than I wanted to have. But sitting here at the 107, Breece Hall comes off the board at the 106, and that leaves us Justin Jefferson. This is a guy that obviously you guys know I'm a fan of. Obviously, we all know how talented Justin Jefferson is. And I am more than happy to snag Justin Jefferson right now because he is on the thumbnail of today's video. So I guess I just manifested this. I spoke this into existence, and now we have Justin Jefferson on the roster. So the way that I am looking at these underdog drafts right now, the first round is absolutely loaded. You get all of the elite running backs. You get the Christian McCaffreys, the Breece Halls, the Bijan Robinsons, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jonathan Taylors. You get all of those guys that are possible first-round picks. You also get the elite wide receivers, the Tyreek Hill, CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase, Amon-Ra, Justin Jefferson, and then Garrett Wilson and Puka Nacua kind of slide their way into these first rounds as well, typically. And that's kind of what is going on right now. You see A.J. Brown comes off the board, another really good wide receiver. I actually have him above Puka Nacua and Garrett Wilson in my rankings. And then Jonathan Taylor right there at the 201. So being there at that turn, we talked about it a little bit today. That is a position where I am most likely trying to stay even keel with my roster. I'm trying to grab a wide receiver and a running back. I've tried it a couple times this offseason where you go double running back right there. You grab a Jonathan Taylor and a Jahmyr Gibbs if you can get those guys. And if you can, you have to kind of punt some of the other positions, maybe a quarterback or maybe a tight end, because you kind of have to account for going so heavy at the running backs. And this year, it feels like the running back position is so deep. You're getting guys like Kyron Williams in the third round, guys like ETN in the fourth round. Just a lot of really talented players that I believe in. A big guy that I believe in James Conner and Joe Mixon later in drafts. You see, we're on the board here in just a second. So we will prepare for this next pick. And this pick right here is a massive tier of wide receivers. It's kind of pick your poison here. So I will be going with one of these wide receivers, but you see, we have Justin Jefferson. He has a week 6 bye week. So we're going to look at that. Only Jalen Waddle has that same bye. So we don't have to worry too much about any of these guys because Waddle was not going to be my pick anyways. I'm going to be going with Brandon Ayuk. Brandon Ayuk is still probably the highest player in my rankings right now. I know there's a lot of people worried about Brandon Ayuk because he's causing a lot of drama and a lot of stir on social media. And people are kind of worried that he may not be a San Francisco 49er this year. I think he will be, and he's still going to produce. He had a super efficient season last year, and even though this year it's going to be hard to match the efficiencies, it's not like he was getting a massive target share, and it's not like he was seeing a ton of volume. So if he sees a little bit more increase in volume, you got to keep in mind the 49ers, they were one of the lowest passing offenses in the NFL. So if they kind of regress back to the mean, Brandon Ayuk gets a little bit of an uptick in volume. It's not going to matter if he has some regression in the efficiencies because the uptick will be there. And I see we have a couple people in here. Caleb says, I will only hit the like button if I hear you say Hawk Tua in the first 5 minutes. So Hawk Tua, buddy, you better go hit that like button. G Money also is in at the 112. Walker's at the 101. So good to see a couple people in here with us today. And then G Money says Ayuk is falling too far. So I agree, man. It's an interesting kind of situation, I think, with Brandon Ayuk. And let's kind of just look at this board real quick. We won't have time to go to the full board, but we had all of those run or wide receivers come off of the board. And then we had Devon Achane and Kyron Williams. Those would be the next guys up in my rankings personally. I think Kyron Williams, anytime I can get him in the third round, it's an auto draft button for me. Unfortunately, we're not going to get him here. So we are going to have to go a different direction. Now, there is guys like Derrick Henry on the board, Cooper Kupp, Stephon Diggs, Michael Pittman, Tank Dell, a lot of these guys left on the board, and Derrick Henry comes off. So that's going to force us into a wide receiver pick. So I'm not mad about that. There's a couple guys that I like: Cooper Kupp, Stephon Diggs, Michael Pittman, like I mentioned. I don't really have an issue with any of these guys, but for the sake of this team, I am going to go with Michael Pittman Jr. I'm going to draft him here. That's going to give us some flexibility, and our wide receiver room is looking loaded right now. Justin Jefferson, Brandon Ayuk, and Michael Pittman Jr. So that is kind of what we are pulling away out of the first couple of rounds with. I'll pull the big draft board back on the board, and we got the rolling here. He says Ayuk is overrated in his opinion. So want to kind of hear the role. Tell me why you think he's overrated, because he's a player that I'm very high on. Dynasty leagues, best ball leagues, redraft leagues, it doesn't matter. I think Brandon Ayuk is an absolute baller. So a player that I definitely like. But right now, we are looking at a tier where all of these players on the board, we'll kind of go back and look at them. There is guys like Kupp, Diggs, Dell, Josh Allen, Travis Kelce, T. Higgins, Jalen Hurts. This is kind of where, if you want to get in on the elite quarterback action, you can start to get in. Or if you want to get in on the elite tight end action, you can start to get in. I don't necessarily want to be the guy to draft the Sam Laporta or be the guy to draft the Travis Kelce in my fantasy football leagues, because I feel like there's a tier of tight ends a little bit later, the Dalton Kincaids, the Mark Andrews, the Trey McBrides, and even if you want to go further down the board, the Jake Ferguson, the David Njokus. I'd rather grab one of those guys and keep getting the value here on the wide receivers and on the running backs, because that's kind of the core that I'm building this team around for the most part. Now, Caleb says he wants me to talk through MPJ over Kupp. So I think there's a couple ways that we could look at this. Really, Michael Pittman Jr., we know that he is the number one in this offense. Cooper Kupp, I think he is probably the number two at this point. Puka Nacua is most likely the 1A there for the most part. And that's not necessarily bad. I think Kupp can still be productive. I view Kupp as a definite top 20 wide receiver, maybe top 24 wide receiver in my rankings. But I do have Michael Pittman Jr. a little bit above him. We've seen him get a lot of volume. We've seen him be productive with it. And if Anthony Richardson makes this offense a little bit more efficient, where they're scoring a little bit more touchdowns, then Michael Pittman will have some touchdown upside on top of that as well. So I do like Michael Pittman Jr. here over Cooper Kupp, but I don't think Cooper Kupp's a bad pick there. I probably would sprinkle it differently in a couple more of these drafts, but in this one specifically, we will go Michael Pittman Jr. So we are back on the board here, and there is a massive value staring me in the face right now. And I know a lot of people are probably not very high on him. We are here at pick 42. That is the ADP that we're at. We're getting about 10 spots ADP value on Stephon Diggs. I am not down on Stephon Diggs at all, really, for the most part. Now, he is obviously not going to perform or give us the numbers that he used to give us when he was the number one wide receiver there in Buffalo. But I do think that Stephon Diggs, there is a decent chance that he leads this team in targets this year. He's going to play close to the line of scrimmage. We know this offense is going to score a lot of points. There's going to be a lot of fantasy points to go around. And the way that I have it right now is, if I were to draft these guys in order, I would take Nico Collins first, Stephon Diggs behind him, and then I have Tank Dell outside of my top 24 wide receivers. So I am still getting a guy in Stephon Diggs who I have inside of my top 24 wide receivers, and that is giving me a wide receiver room here of Justin Jefferson, Ayuk, Pittman, and Diggs, and I feel very, very comfortable with this room. And now we can kind of start looking at some of these other opportunities in this draft to take some running back value, take maybe an elite tight end or maybe an elite quarterback, and kind of make this roster different. So we'll come back here to the big board. We're getting around the turn there in the fifth round. And we got a couple comments that I want to bring up. Roll's talking about how he thinks that Ayuk is overrated. He said Ayuk was wide receiver 14 last year, going ahead of Waddle, despite Waddle having better finishes. How did I know the Roll was going to bring up Jalen Waddle? He is Jalen Waddle's number one fan. So it is what it is. It's fine. I know you like your guy. Nothing wrong with that. But I don't think Brandon Ayuk should be called overrated as a form of defense for why you like Jalen Waddle. Walker says Ayuk over London and Olave in that tier. He is priced near ceiling, though. I would agree with that. I don't think there's much more room for ceiling to or for Ayuk to go ceiling wise, but he does belong in that tier right there. So we did have a couple more running backs come off the board: the Rashad Whites, the James Cooks, and then we had some elite tight ends come off the board: Dalton Kincaid, Trey McBride, Travis Kelce, and we are back up on the clock. I don't mind grabbing an elite tight end right here in Mark Andrews. He is going to be my pick because I view those guys as the top tight ends in fantasy football right now. We'll go back to this big board because Sam Laporta, McBride, Kelce, Andrews, and Kincaid, those are my 5. We talked about this on the video today for bdge. I want to get the cheapest of these guys, and in this draft, it happened to be Mark Andrews because I think all of these guys can be game-breaking for fantasy football this year. So give me the guy in Mark Andrews. He's the cheapest on the board, and it gives us an elite tight end that we can work around, and now we don't have to worry about that position until later in this draft. So we have our wide receivers. We have our tight end. Now we kind of have to start addressing the running back room because our running back has been punted so far to this point, but that's not a bad thing because there is still a lot of good value on the board here for the running back position. G Money says that Najee is his favorite pick in the draft every time, says contract year plus 3 upgrades to a bad O-line. I agree with you. I'm a little bit higher on Najee than consensus right now. And Jason says best Najee aspect is Arthur Smith as coordinator, which is very true because he's going to run the damn football. He always has and he always will. And Najee profiles is kind of their bell cow type of back. So we're going to be up here in just a second. Give me a second to get a little drink. Walker says he has like 40% Najee. Dude, I have an insane amount of Troy Franklin right now. You guys know it's kind of a bit on the channel at this point, but I'm the Troy Franklin guy. I have like 60% Troy Franklin. But we are slowly approaching our next pick, and there's a guy on the board that I really like here. So I'm going to end up taking him. His name is Joe Mixon. I am higher on Joe Mixon than consensus. I think he can truly finish as an RB1 in this offense this year. It is going to be one of those seasons for Joe Mixon. The usage that he saw in Cincinnati, I don't see it being much different here in Houston. There is a bunch of cones behind Joe Mixon. And if you like Dameon Pierce, I'm sorry that you like Dameon Pierce because he is nothing different than a Clyde Edwards-Helaire type of running back handcuff right now for Joe Mixon. And even if you look at what he did last year, coming off of 4 straight years of RB1 finishes for Joe Mixon, I think this is we could even argue a more efficient offense, maybe even an upgraded offense than what he played in last year. Obviously, with Joe Burrow out of the lineup, there should be a lot of touchdown opportunities for Joe Mixon. So very excited about him. I have him, I think, as my RB 13 in my rankings right now. So very excited for it. Roll says, I saw that strawberry banana prime. It hits hard. It really does. Honestly, it's one of my favorite flavors of prime. It's pretty damn good. And Dobbsy says Texans team, Diggs and Mixon. Gotta love it, man. Invest in those high scoring offenses, and that's what this Texans team is. So we are going to be up again here in about 8 picks. Let's scroll back. Let's see this board. We had a couple of wide receivers come off in this tier that I still am a fan of. I like Jaden Reed. I like taking an upside shot on JSN. I like Deontay Johnson. I like Rashee Rice in this tier. But because we were so wide receiver heavy early on, now we're kind of attacking the running back. And actually, the way that this team is coming out right now, this feels like it's going to be a very, very solid roster. Obviously, a lot of draft left, so we'll see how that keeps panning out. But this feels like a very, very good roster so far. Caleb says, I just got my first ever prime and it's that flavor. Dude, if you like strawberry banana flavored stuff, it's a good one. Roll says, even though you could have snagged Waddle or Achane, team goes hard. I'm telling you, this team's pretty solid, man. And then we have a running back run coming off the board. Kamara, Stevenson, Aaron Jones, Najee Harris. Was the guy who says he has 40% Najee the one who ended up getting Najee here or no? Walker, did you get him? No, you didn't. You went Kamara. So we're up next. there's a tier of wide receivers here that I just am not a fan of, man. I don't really like any of these guys. So I do not have an issue with kind of drafting a little bit of a reach at this point. This is a running back that I'm very high on as well. I have James Conner currently as my running back 18 in my rankings, much higher than where consensus has him. So he's a guy that I am very high on as well. I think he could give us mid RB2 numbers this year, mid-range RB2 numbers this year. And so you see, we picked him pick 79. His ADP is 93. There's just not a lot of guys in that tier. So I don't mind reaching out in that tier when we are looking at rookies like Keon Coleman and Xavier Worthy and some other guys there that probably their ADP, even Lad McConkey, their ADP's a little bit too high. The rookie ADP is getting pushed up too much in drafts right now. I don't really like where they're all at, but I have no issue taking a guy like James Conner to keep beefing up this running back room. Walker says he should have stuck to his guns, got some Najee. G Mundy says, check out my 7 to 8 turn. So we'll see what you do here. You went, Fergie and Dak Prescott. I don't mind it at all for the Dallas Cowboys stack. That's the sneaky stack there in Dallas. Walker loves X Worthy. Goes 20 picks after ADP loves how he goes 20 picks after ADP every draft. Yeah, it's because his ADP is just way too high, dude. It's just not appropriate right now. Rolls says he doesn't care for Connor in Dynasty, but in redraft, he's a value. I think he's the single best value on James Conner. I think James Conner is the single best value in redraft leagues. Jake's asking if I'm still high on Trey Benson in Dynasty. Yes, I love Trey Benson for next season on. I still think he can be a producer this year, but everything that we've heard so far coming out of camp for the Cardinals is that they are going to lean on a guy like James Conner. And we're going to draft DeAndre Swift here and get another running back in this offense. So, or not in this offense, on this team. But I am still high on Benson in Dynasty. But I think his big value, long-term value, is going to come next season when James Conner's contract is up, because James Conner is in the final year of his contract here. So let's go back to this board. We still haven't taken a quarterback. There's no quarterback on this team yet, but we probably have a ton of stack potential still. Jaden Daniels off the board in this round, Dak Prescott, Joe Burrow, all of these guys I think are solid quarterbacks. Kyler Murray a couple rounds before. I really like Kyler Murray this year. And now we're starting to see those rookie wide receivers come off the board as well. The Keon Colemans, the Brian Thomases, Lad McConkey, Xavier Worthy, all of them in the last couple of wide receiver picks. So we will kind of see what happens. Mostert's kind of a value right now too. I know Adam is a big Mostert guy right now because you see the touchdowns that he scored last year, and the situation really hasn't changed at all for a guy like Raheem Mostert, but we've pushed him outside of like our top 24 running backs in ADP for the most part. So it seems like a lot of the community is treating it as if he is a one-hit wonder, or if that can't happen again. I don't know if that's necessarily the case. We'll see what happens there, but we are approaching our next pick here. We have the Houston Texans. We have the Niners. There's potentially a Purdy stack here that we could approach. We could even go with like, I don't know. There's not really much other than that. A Caleb Williams one. But I don't think that I'm going to reach for a Purdy stack. I don't think Purdy is that big of a difference from like a guy like Tua or Goff that are a couple rounds later. So we will just go back to the wide receiver position. I'm going to take Romeo Doubs. He's not special by any means. I don't think he's going to be a guy that is going to win us any given week. But I talked about a little bit earlier in this stream where I just want to keep investing in good offenses. I think the Green Bay Packers are going to be a good offense this year. Obviously, we saw Jordan Love take the step up last year. I think he might even take another step forward in 2024, or at least that's the hope for everybody that is a Jordan Love truther. If that is the case, we know that wide receiver room is a little bit crowded. You have Christian Watson, who's kind of always dealt with these injuries. Jaden Reed broke out last year. Romeo Doubs, he's kind of been Mr. Consistent. And then you have the Dontavion Wicks hive that is just waiting for Wicks to get his opportunity because everybody loves him as like their favorite sleeper. He's everybody's favorite sleeper. But I think there's one guy who's consistently been consistent in this room, and it's been Romeo Doubs. like I said, he's not going to give you the flashy numbers, but if you need 10 plus points any given week, I do think that Romeo Doubs can give you that. So we're taking him as our wide receiver 5. I don't really need those big spike weeks out of a guy like Romeo Doubs. And I really do like Curtis Samuel. He went before we took Romeo Doubs. Curtis Samuel might have been the pick over Doubs for me, but with Samuel off the board, definitely don't mind taking Doubs there. And Dobbsy says he likes or loves Dobbs. So, and he says loves Dobbs with the Bears logo. So that says a lot about Romeo Doubs. Now we're here on the board again. Now we do have Brock Purdy sitting here on the board. I think I will go Brock Purdy. I know I just talked about how there wasn't a big difference, but 113, we're now getting him at ADP. Sure, I guess why not? I mean, Brock Purdy, he did finish as a top 10 quarterback last year in fantasy points per game. This does give us the stack with Brandon Ayuk. So we do get that correlation there, which I do like to chase stacks in best ball. So not a bad pick there. Again, there is still some guys that I think like Tua and other guys that might give you similar numbers. But hey, we could take another one of those guys as well, like a Jared Goff or a Tua, and just rock with those as our 2 QBs. Now, the roll says, does Brooks for Sharps and a second sound fair? I want Sharps because I've got Walker. I'm assuming this is a dynasty because we're talking draft picks, but in a dynasty league, no, I want Jonathan Brooks probably by a mile on this type of offer. So I know you said you have Walker, you want Sharps. Not giving up Jonathan Brooks for that. Seems like Caleb agrees with that as well. The roll says, call me crazy, but I love me some Mike Williams. There's nobody else there. I mean, Malachi Corley, if you believe in him, if you've been following the Dynasty content, obviously I've talked very highly about Malachi Corley. I think he can be a weapon for the Jets. But Mike Williams still isn't practicing, the last I heard. And maybe I missed some news, but I think he's not practicing right now, and he feels like somebody who's a little bit risky. I can't imagine he's going to be a huge contributor, but maybe he's a value at this ADP. I mean, the guys that are going here, Jacoby Myers or Shaheed, I don't know. I think you could still make an argument that those are better picks. Now, we did have these quarterbacks come off the board: Tua, Jared Goff, Jerome Ford, another good pick in these middle to late rounds, I guess you could say. But we're going to be back up on the board here. And I'm looking to add potentially, I don't know, another running back, maybe another wide receiver, one of those two. And right now at the running back position, there's not a lot that I love. We could go with Zach Charbonnet as like an injury insurance type of pick. Or if you wanted to go with like a Jerry Jeudy, I don't mind that either. Maybe let's go with Jerry Jeudy. I don't love Jerry Jeudy as a player, but the opportunity here in Cleveland, they gave him money. Deshaun Watson, when he's healthy, he's been actually pretty solid for fantasy football. I threw out a stat the other day. It's coming out on a video. Actually, I researched a video that's coming out tomorrow. I talk a little bit about Deshaun Watson, and he's third all time in fantasy points per game. And I know a lot of that is in Houston. We'll see. He hasn't really been healthy here in Cleveland, but if Amari Cooper, who's holding out right now, wants a contract, I don't know. Maybe there's a price for Jerry Jeudy, and maybe this is me just trying to talk myself into Jerry Jeudy, but we have 6 wide receivers now, and he's our wide receiver 6. There's definitely a lot worse picks we could have made. I was thinking maybe Sharp or Jeudy, but it sounds like Walker thinks we made the right decision here because he says he has 0% Charb, says he's way too pricey. And that's right, I think, for the most part, because when you draft Charbonnet, you are drafting a handcuff, a high-end handcuff that probably has some value only if Kenneth Walker is hurt. All right, we're slowly approaching our pick. Eli says I sniped him on Jeudy. My bad, bro. G Mundy says he's a Jahan Dotson believer. And we have a question here from Jake, who says 12 team start 10 Superflex traded away Danny Dimes for a 25 third and a 26 second. He was my 4th QB coming out of the startup. I have Herbert, Kyler, Bryce. Good move. I don't know. I probably wouldn't have. I understand you didn't need him, and his value's not very high. I probably wouldn't have traded him for a second. A second just doesn't get me going for a starting QB. They're just way too valuable in those 12-team leagues. I would have probably tried to move him for a player if I had that, or maybe I probably would have just tried to get that 26 first and said F the 25 third. So we will take our next guy. I am going to take Marshawn Lloyd here of the Green Bay Packers. So we have another Packer on this team. I'm a big fan of Marshawn Lloyd. I think his tape is really good coming out of USC, and he's probably going to be a committee running back in this backfield because Matt LaFleur has always ran a committee approach in his offenses. And I just feel like with Josh Jacobs, he wasn't super efficient last year. And then you have all of the coach speak coming out about Marshawn Lloyd. The GM's talking about he's fast and he's different than every running back that they have on the team, and really compliments him for the speed and the elusiveness that Marshawn Lloyd has, which is true. He is a very shifty back. And then also the coaches are also talking about how much he brings to this offense because he's a different type of running back. He's electric and things like that. So if you did have a Jacobs injury, I think Lloyd is first up, and he would have like league winning type of upside if Jacobs went down. But even if Jacobs doesn't go down, I think Lloyd is going to be involved in this offense no matter what. So we are about 8 picks away. We'll go back to this board. We probably need to look at another QB here soon. Maybe another tight end here soon. This tier of running back is kind of the upside pick your poison. You have the Kendre Millers, the Marshawn Lloyds. Even right before that, we had the Charbonnets. I looked at Justin Herbert at that pick, and I really try to talk myself into the negative stuff about Justin Herbert because for me, I feel like when I look at him, I feel like we're drafting him at his floor. And we had a long conversation today about Justin Herbert at the bdge office where Nick and Adam do not agree with me. I feel like him coming off the board is QB 16. It feels like, yes, there's going to be less passing volume in Los Angeles this year, but they still play in a division with the Chiefs, and we don't expect them to be a good football team. So they are going to be playing from behind a good amount of time, which means that as much as they want to establish the run, they probably won't have the luxury of running it all game long every single game. And so I think that we're kind of overblowing this decrease in passing volume in the community for the Los Angeles Chargers. You have Josh Palmer, Ladd McConkey, obviously Quentin Johnson there. A very big downgrade in the wide receiver room from what they had last year in Keenan Allen. But I don't know, man. I feel like we're drafting Justin Herbert at his floor. It feels like there really isn't much that needs to happen for him to not at least return the investment as QB 16 in the ADP right now. G Mundy says, I think all rookie RBs outside of Brooks and Benson are being drafted too high. I could see the argument for that for sure. I just think that's kind of the price you have to pay with some of these rookies, especially in best ball formats, because we are drafting them kind of at a ceiling, I guess. So we're here for our next pick. QBs on the board are not crazy. Probably, I don't know. I don't want to get left out in the cold, so I will take one. I am going to go Deshaun Watson here. We do have Jerry Jeudy. So I do get the stack of Deshaun Watson and Jerry Jeudy in this offense. I just talked about Deshaun Watson potentially having a bounce back this year. He's one of my most highly drafted players in best ball right now. I think of all quarterbacks, I think I have the most exposure to Deshaun Watson right now. And it's just because you saw the tier that I drafted him. We're talking about like Baker Mayfield, Aaron Rodgers, Geno Smith, Will Levis. Not super impressed by these guys. As much as I like Bryce Young for Dynasty, as much as I think Will Levis could take a step forward, Baker Mayfield looked good last year. Aaron Rodgers, a lot of people like Aaron Rodgers and hope that he returns to form. I don't know, man. I think Deshaun Watson has more upside in that offense than we think. And they just made an OC change where Ken Dorsey is coming over from the Buffalo Bills. He is known for throwing the football a lot. He threw the football a lot when he was in Buffalo. Alex Van Pelt, their old offensive coordinator, is now where did Alex Van Pelt go? regardless, Alex Van Pelt is out. He used to run the football a ton. And now you have Ken Dorsey. Maybe Deshaun Watson starts throwing the football a little bit more this year, and you get a little bit of a upgrade there. We're on the clock again. G Mundy says Gino is my Pookie. Hey, look, man, everybody has their guy, right? Everybody has their guy. So let's see. We got another pick here. I think what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to end up taking I'm going to take an Antonio Gibson here because behind Ramondre Stevenson, there's not much. I do think Antonio Gibson can take some of that passing volume in their, or some of the receiving work in their passing game. And if Ramondre goes down or gets hurt, Antonio Gibson, he's given us RB1 seasons in the past when he has been the number one guy. So another upside running back pick here. And we get him at about ADP, just a tiny bit above it, but nothing crazy. So we're going to be up in 10 picks, but let's pull up this draft board. Let's talk about a little bit that's been going on. Jaleel McLaughlin, this is a guy that I actually like taking a shot on because I just think that running back room in Denver is so ambiguous right now. I don't mind taking the shot on McLaughlin, who's looked good in spurts. Ty Chandler, I think he's a good solid backup to Aaron Jones, and I think he can be used in spurts as well. Probably will have a little bit more of a role than we think. But let's look at this comment from Walker. He says, I haven't touched Brooks as a Panthers fan. I think Chuba gets too much usage. And I agree. Chuba Hubbard, I actually was on a show this last weekend, and we were talking about late round running backs and some of the best picks. If you went 0 RB, like who are some running backs that we should be taking? And Chuba Hubbard was a guy that I mentioned. I feel like Chuba definitely is going to start the year as the starter, and it could be almost the majority of the year, 10, 12-ish weeks before Jonathan Brooks even gets really fully involved in this offense. If at all, it could just be Chuba Hubbard as the 1A in this offense for the majority of the year. So I do like Chuba Hubbard this late in drafts as well. So we saw Troy Franklin and Geno come off the board. Walker, I talked about how much I have Troy Franklin. It's okay for the brand. I'll let you have him right now. Let's go back to this pick because we are up at 175. We probably need to look at, I don't know, maybe our backup tight end here. Maybe. There's not a lot of tight ends that I like, though. I mean, we still got guys like Isaiah Likely, but we do have Mark Andrews, so we don't really want Likely. Ott and Fant, they both come off the board as soon as I say that, of course. So two guys that we were looking at. I don't know, man. I always punt that tight end too far. That's one thing that I do too much in these drafts. But we have an elite tight end 1. I know Mark Andrews has missed some time lately, so that's a little bit concerning. We'll see. I think what I'm going to do here, though, is I'm going to take Michael Wilson for the Arizona Cardinals. Kind of a big play threat in this offense. I do talk a lot about how much I like Kyler Murray this year. I think you put Michael Wilson here. We now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 wide receivers. We really don't need to draft another one. We have 5 running backs. We'll probably take a couple more. And we have our QBs. This team as a whole actually is looking really good, man. We have the correlation for the stack between Watson and Judy. We have the Purdy and Ayuk stack. Very good so far with our bye weeks, at least for the starters. Mixon, Connor, Swift, none of those cross over. And then we have Lloyd and Gibson as high upside kind of backups on the bench. Love the wide receivers in Jefferson, Ayuk, Pittman, Diggs. Then you have Dobbs, Judy, Wilson. This is a solid team, man. Let me know. I mean, if you're watching, guys, in the comments, let me know if you like this team. What do you not like about this team? I'm interested to hear your thoughts because I actually really do like this roster. And I'm not just capping for the stream, man. I actually do. I feel a lot better about this than I did last year. And I see we got the boy, King Nicholas, in here. He said, "What the hell?" And that's how I feel as well, buddy. What the hell are you doing now? You said you were turning your mind off for fantasy football, so I don't want to see you in this chat anymore. Get out of here. We're about to be up. We're going to be taking I don't know. I think I'm about to make a nasty boy pick. We're about to make a nasty ugly, gross selection here, but it's what we got to do. I am going to take, assuming that the candy bar doesn't do it. Done. Get out of here. We're going to take Tyler Conklin for the New York Jets. There is obviously not a lot to like left at this tight end position. You have guys like Okonkwo, Jonnu, Gesicki, Juwan Johnson. Tyler Conklin has consistently seen targets in this offense, and he hasn't produced a ton. Obviously, the quarterback play has been horrendous, just down bad for the Jets for a couple of years. But Conklin has been on pace for one of the most targeted tight ends in the last couple of seasons. So I do think that as a backup option, obviously we're going to rely heavily on Mark Andrews in this build. Conklin on the bye week, if there's an injury, we sprinkle him in. Maybe he gives us 8 to 12 points. That's all I need from a guy like Tyler Conklin. And maybe he actually takes a step forward with a guy like Aaron Rodgers under center. The roll says, who was there when you drafted Pittman? When I drafted Pittman, we got him at the 307. There was guys like Zay Flowers, Cooper Kupp, George Pickens, Amari Cooper, Tank Dell, Stephon Diggs. Those are some of the guys on the board. He says if Metcalf was there, Metcalf over Pittman. Metcalf was not there. He went at the 211. So I did get Pittman there at the 307. So we are slowly approaching our next pick, about 6 picks away. Done at the wide receiver position. Don't need another one of those guys. Done at the tight end position. Done at the quarterback position. I think we just finished this roster off and we put the icing on the cake here with a couple more running backs. So we'll just look at this running back position. There's a couple nasty boys. I mean, we're in nasty boy territory right now. Maybe we should hashtag that nasty boy territory for the late rounds of these underdog drafts. Roll says Pittman was solid value. I agree, man. But there's one nasty boy in specifically that is going to get people probably nauseous when I make this selection, assuming I'm allowed to make this selection and nobody snipes me, but it's going to make people nauseous. And I'm sorry. So get your barf bags out now. I'm warning you. There's a trigger warning. We need a trigger warning for the screen. We about to get dirty. I'm sorry, folks. We about to get dirty. Take another running back here. And you guys probably know who I'm talking about. You see the name on the screen. It's sticking out to me like a sore thumb. And when I say a sore thumb, it's really a sore subject for most people in the fantasy space. We're going to take Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Now, hear me out. I know that Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he's not somebody that anybody in the community likes at all. But you look at the depth chart behind Isaiah Pacheco. There's nobody here. They brought Clyde Edwards-Helaire back. He is probably going to be getting some receiving work in this backfield. And if Isaiah Pacheco, who runs like he's trying to run through mud, runs like he's trying to stomp out the turf, if he gets hurt, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is inevitably going to fall into touches. And yes, he probably is not going to be great, but he's going to be used. And that's all I'm looking for down here, is somebody who can be used. And Chuck says, and this guy is talking about CEH. Hell yes. Unfortunately, I have to talk about CEH here, but I think he's the best pick on the board at the moment. There's not really any other running backs that I really like other than Clyde Edwards-Helaire right here. Said he just started watching. Maybe you missed the trigger warning. I said to get your barf bags. I said to get it ready because we were going to get nasty here, and we did. And Walker says, even worse, because Roll thought it was Tank Bigsby. We're talking CH. I'm sorry, brothers. It's just the way that it is here. But the team overall is looking really damn solid. We got one more pick here, and then we'll kind of recap this roster. And so, and then we'll get on out of here because this was a very productive stream, quick and easy, very easy to get this team out. And I appreciate you guys coming in here and watching. Don't leave yet. We will draft this, or we will take this last player, and then we will talk about the roster. Now, coming up on the board at the running back position, like I said, a lot of nasty boys here. Maybe scroll the hell down. Not a lot that I like down here. I don't know, man. Part of me wants to say you just take a guy like Roshan Johnson, but we do have DeAndre Swift, so I'm not going to do that. Alexander Madison, he feels like a backup to Zamir White that maybe could get some usage, maybe could get some receiving work. He's probably my pick here. So we will take Alexander Madison. Maybe that's just me trying to forgive him for his days in Minnesota. I don't know. He gave me a lot of good years, then he gave me a bad year when we needed him the most. Unfortunate. But let's look at this team as a whole. Actually, it'll pull up here in just a second. I do want to let you guys know, if you want to support our show, if you want to support this channel, if you want to support me, which I would greatly appreciate it. The best way is to watch this video. The best way is to subscribe. The best way is to hit the like button. But also, if you've never played Underdog Fantasy and you want to play Underdog Fantasy, you want to draft with me here in the future, if you sign up, you use code League FFB, that does directly support this show. It is the best financial way to support this show. And all you have to do is deposit $10. You can draft with me in the future. And there is a link in the description and a link in this chat as well, where you can just click that link and sign up over on Underdog Fantasy if you haven't already. It's the best way to get ready for your redraft leagues. It's the best way to prepare for the 2024 NFL fantasy football season. And I would appreciate you guys going and doing that if you haven't signed up already. They will give you up to $250 in bonus cash. That is guaranteed. So go ahead and do that. Now, looking at this roster, we have at the quarterback position, Brock Purdy and Deshaun Watson. Not really anything here that stands out. I think two solid quarterback options. You also have Deshaun Watson, where we did take him a little bit above ADP, but that was kind of to attack a stack on this roster. So we did go get the stack of Watson and Judy, and then we have the stack of Purdy and Ayuk. Now, you do have roll. He's throwing up, man. I told you, get ready. Now at the running back position, we got Joe Mixon. We got James Conner, who I took above ADP because I am absurdly high on James Conner right now. I have him as my running back 18 in my rankings. I think in underdog drafts, he's being drafted as like the running back 26-ish, something like that. So I'm much higher on James Conner. We got DeAndre Swift giving us a good 3 running backs to rely on, and then some upside on the bench for the running back position. Marshawn Lloyd, Antonio Gibson, CEH, and then Alexander Madison. At the wide receiver position, this is the strong point of our team, and this is the part of the team that I like the most. We went out and got 3 wide receivers, actually 4 wide receivers in the first 4 rounds. Justin Jefferson, Brandon Ayuk, Michael Pittman Jr., Stephon Diggs, Romeo Doubs, Jerry Jeudy, and Michael Wilson. Definitely feels like the strong point of the roster. And then you have Mark Andrews and Tyler Conklin as our tight ends. We waited on that tight end too late. We're going to rely on Mark Andrews and see what happens. So overall, that is the team. I do see G Money says thoughts on my team. So let's go back and let's look at his team real quick. I will talk about it. AJ Brown, Jonathan Taylor, Cooper Kupp, George Pickens. Love that start. Kenneth Walker. I don't mind the Kenneth Walker pick. Keenan Allen, I'm not too high on for the most part. I just can't click draft on him for some reason. But at that tier where he's in, I could definitely see why you draft him over a guy like Ladd McConkey and Worthy. The Ferguson and the Dak stack. Singletary, Tajay, like it. Josh Downs, Jahan Dotson. Not a big Dotson believer, but swing on the upside. And this is like getting into nasty boy round territory. Hawkinson upside. He may miss some time this year. Is so interesting. Mooney, Herbert, Russell Wilson, Bo Nix, Johnny Smith. Not a bad team overall. The bottom of the roster with like Wilson, Nix, Smith, I don't love them. But again, it's nasty boy territory, and I don't think there's much desirable. I mean, we made picks that I was warning you guys about barf bags, so don't worry too much about that. But overall, a very solid lineup. But yeah, guys, that is it for today's stream. We do have Chuck that says Ferguson and Hawkinson is interesting. So I agree. And then Joel says my wide receivers are so boom or bust. Now, like I said, guys, let me switch this over. That is going to be it for today's stream. So if you guys did tap in, I appreciate you guys tapping in. If you are not subscribed to this channel, hit the subscribe button. It is the best way to support our channel. Catch all of our future content. We got Dynasty content, best ball content, redraft content, any type of content that you guys want for the most part in the fantasy football space. I'm doing that on this channel 5 days a week at this point in July. So lots of content coming for you guys. So make sure you're subscribed. That way you don't miss any of it. Hit the like button on your way out the door. And also, last but not least, make sure you're a member of the Discord. We do have a free Discord linked in the description. It doesn't cost anything to join, but that is the best place to ask me fantasy football questions. We had a couple questions in the chat today. You can ask them directly in my Discord. And that is where I send links for future drafts, for trade review shows and Dynasty Fantasy Football, all that good stuff. So make sure you go join that Discord. It is free. Like I said, linked in the description. Couple comments on the way out. Drachna says, fun drafting with you. Thanks for the content from Charlemagne. Thanks, bro. Taking your $3 from Walker. I love it. G Money says it belongs to him. So we'll see. But I appreciate you guys. We will do another one of these next Wednesday. Every Wednesday, we're going to do a draft like this. So keep your eyes out. And with that being said, we'll see you guys on the next video. Until then, peace out.